Friends, welcome to my workplace at Ranaghat, West Bengal, India. This is a posterior subcapsular cataract with history of blunt trauma. Let us observe this surgery. After a thorough irrigation of the ocular surface with PSS, this is the main incision with a 2.8 mm steel keratome at around 11 o'clock. Now visco is injected into the anterior chamber, and then a side port is made on the left side of the main incision. And now see what happens as I try to do capsulorhexis. The Vitreous forceps goes in. Now as I try to make a puncture onto the anterior capsule, the whole lens moves and there is wrinkling of the anterior capsule. This indicates weak zonule. However, after several attempts, I could pierce the anterior capsule, raise a tag, and I am on the way of completion of this adequate sized Rhexis of about 5.5 mm. And now before hydrodissection, I'm going to apply this CTR, because after hydrodissection the visibility will go down and it may be very difficult. The whole thing may tend to prolapse. This is a soft cataract and the application of CTR will be very difficult. So leading end goes into the capsular bag. Now with the help of a Macpherson's forceps and the fixation forceps, the CTR is threaded into the anterior, into the capsular bag. Now the Sinskey hook holds the trailing end, and now I go inside with the chopper in my right hand, because if the trailing end gets stuck, I can release it by the chopper. Now we can see a gap between the two ends at 10 o'clock. So this part of the bag is not supported. I didn't pay much attention at this time, but when the complication occurred, I could make out that it is because of this. The bag is not supported from 10 to 10:30 o'clock. By hydrodissection, the nucleus tilted, and I'm going to eat off the lens mass in that tilted position. And this is a very good technique to protect the posterior capsule. The equator, prolapsed part of the equator is being eaten off, while the other equator is resting on the posterior capsule, and the chance of PC rent is minimized. And now this thick epinucleus with low vacuum and low flow rate, I am trying to remove this epinucleus, and it has come out easily. And now with much lower vacuum and flow rate, I am trying to remove the cortex as much as possible, and I could remove the cortex, half of the cortex, by the phaco needle itself. The cortex from 10 o'clock, from 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock has been removed. Now I am trying to remove the cortex from 7 o'clock. but I could not. So here I gave up. Before coming out, I injected visco, stopped irrigation, and injected visco, and then came out. And now I have taken this instrument. This is the Simcoe cannula. Though the CTR is there, even then the cortex is coming out very nicely. The pull should be tangential, not centripetal. And yes, ultimately the cortex came out very easily, and this was nice. The bag and the antechamber was filled up with visco, and this is a very nice case. The lens is implanted in the capsular bag. Everything is fine. And now the problem starts. As in other cases, I tried to irrigate out the visco and see what happens. Within few seconds, vitreous prolapse through the main wound. See it in slow motion. The vitreous is getting hydrated in the unsupported area of the equator. The zonule is weak, so the vitreous, hydrated vitreous, is prolapsing through that area. Made this side port at around 8 o'clock, injected an air bubble, and prolapsed vitreous was cut with a Vanna scissor. This is triamcinolone acetate, and now vitrectomy is done. So the mistake I did in this case is I did too much irrigation. I should have used Simcoe, and irrigation and aspiration should have been simultaneous. But what I did is there is normal irrigation, and I flashed out some more BSS through the aspirating port. What I mean is there was double irrigation and no aspiration, and this caused hydration of the vitreous. This fluid went into the vitreous through the unsupported area of the bag, and vitreous prolapse occurred through that area at around 10:30 o'clock, and the vitreous prolapsed through the main wound. So after vitrectomy, as much vitrectomy as possible was done, and now I am applying pilocarpine, and the pupil constricted very well. But see what is happening. The vitreous strands are holding the pupillary margin just in front of the main incision. So some vitreous strands are hooking the pupillary margin here and coming to the main wound. So I inject some visco, take a Vanna scissor, and try to cut these vitreous strands. The vitreous strands are standing out. Triamcinolone acetate molecules staining the vitreous strands, and I could see those strands and cut. And as soon as all these strands are cut, see the pupil has become round, and pupil is constricting further. So, so what I have learned in this case is never ever I will do double irrigation in such cases. Irrigation will be less, aspiration will be more after implanting the lens in the capsular bag. If I did this, then this case would have been much simpler and vitrectomy would not have been required, and this would have been a very nice surgery. However, the complication has been managed well, and I hope the patient will get very good vision. I made another side port at 6 o'clock so that I don't have to use the main incision at 12 o'clock. One more thing I should have done in this case is one haptic of the intraocular lens should have supported the unsupported part of the capsular bag, that is from 10 o'clock to 10:30 o'clock. The part which the CTR didn't support, the haptic of the intraocular lens could have given some support to that area, but I didn't do that. However, the case has been managed quite well, I think, and the patient hopefully will get very good vision. After the final lavage, integrity of all the wounds are checked. Few drops of moxifloxacin is applied over the ocular surface, and the case is concluded. Thank you very much for your attention. Things I did right in this case is I applied the CTR right after the Rhexis, before hydrodissection. I used low vacuum and low flow rate for managing the nucleus. And things I did wrong is after implanting the intraocular lens in the capsular bag, I used too much irrigation without aspiration, and that caused vitreous prolapse. One more thing I should have done is I should have supported the capsular bag by a haptic of the intraocular lens. All these things will help me and probably help you in managing your cases if you come across a situation like this.